Let's draft. 2 spot. Give me Bijan. What are we even talking about here? Give me Bijan. Give me Bijan. What are we talking about? Oh my God, Northern Lion. Come on. Let me pull up my own shit. Need to make sure that it's functioning. More than happy to take Bijan. Brother should have a season and a half. By all accounts, Bijan, not only a great player, but hopefully in an ascending offense. So you know, 1 + 1 = 2. Good player, good running back in an ascending offense. Usually means a lot of good fantasy points. We saw it last year with Jahmyr Gibbs. Obviously, Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, while both young, amazing players, very different play styles. Gibbs definitely has a much higher receiving floor week to week. Bijan does have a firmer control of his backfield. And I do think Bijan probably the more complete back. Gibbs probably the more electrifying back. If I were to split hairs between them. But the reason that you do see Bijan going ahead of Gibbs is simply because you do expect him to get a larger total volume, or at least the bet on that total volume is much better than Gibbs, who certainly could steal more and more from David Montgomery this year, but you know that Bijan's going to be Bijan this year. Not to say Gibbs won't be fantastic. It's just Bijan's safer while still maintaining that super high ceiling. To me, Bijan has the career-long, season-to-season upside as Saquon just had last year. Obviously, Saquon's requires a fantastic team around him, an amazing defense that Atlanta doesn't really have right now, but that's the type of talent that I view Bijan as. Our second pick will come at 23-26. So let's capitulate here a little bit. 23 and 26. I mean, I do it a lot, but I love Tyreek Hill at the end of the second. Like, I'm playing best ball here, man. This is a sprint, not a BBM. Could maybe justify, if I'm really splitting hairs between the contests, I would maybe like Tyreek slightly better in BBM because you're playing for that $1 million. Like, Tyreek's ceiling is so high, but that does come with a slightly lower floor in his, bad scenario of outcomes. T. Higgins is also fantastic. Would line up fairly well with getting one of these Arizona players at our 3rd round pick. So we'll see what happens. Could also see an ADP drop. Time will tell once we get onto that pick what the board's going to have going for us. With Bijan, I do think after going Bijan, like, if you get any value on LA, I'm more than happy to take it, but usually, given where you end up at pick 2, like, I'm not going to take a reach on someone like Devontae Adams. I don't think you're going to see me doing that at 26. It's not a major reach, but I do struggle with it. Nothing to say that it's the worst pick, but especially where we are at right now with Stafford, the back is starting to concern me more and more. The fact that he needs an epidural to kind of work through it. Aging quarterbacks with some lingering injuries this early in the season can be fairly concerning. So I don't think I'm going to do that. As much as I love Puka, I've been such a massive Puka fan this offseason, it's hard for me to do. I also forgot to take a victory lap yesterday, so I'm going to do it right now. Kyren Williams, baby. I've been a massive Kyren Williams fan, saying Jarquez Hunter, maybe he'll be it next year, but he ain't doing it this year. Draft Kyren, draft Kyren, draft Kyren. Well, you know what I'm saying? Look at me. I'm playing favorites here. I don't love Bucky Irving at pick 21. Don't tell my friend James Malazzo, who's a massive Bucky Irving and Buccaneers fan. I don't like it. Bucky Irving's great and all, but like, with these other running backs that you're drafting around him, there is the opportunity for like a top 5 running back season. I think Bucky Irving can certainly be an RB1, but I don't think he gets anywhere close to top 5. I think he kind of caps out. Oh, Jimbo. Oh, no. Don't tell him what I just said. Oh, no. I do think Bucky Irving caps out a little bit at a rate that these other running backs around him, like Chase Brown, don't necessarily cap out to because of the presence of your other great running back, Jimbo, Rashad White, you know? It's just, there's so much talent, you know? It's nothing against Bucky Irving. It's just so much talent, Jim. What can I say? What can I say, Jimothy? I'm gonna be getting a text for that. I already know. He's probably hitting up my inbox. He's saying, you son of a bitch, I love Bucky Irving. Don't you talk bad about Bucky Irving. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Pick 47. What's our plan? Plan's a tentative, to be fair. Miami does play Cincinnati, which makes this a decent thing to build into. We'll try and work in some other matchups to justify those 2 picks later on. But both high-powered offenses. Cincinnati, more so than Miami, will be throwing the ball a fair bit. Miami does throw at a decent clip, but Cincinnati's top of the league in that department. T. Higgins was wide receiver 6 in points per game last year. Tyreek Hill, we're hoping returns back to the previous season, not this last one, the one before it, where he just dominated. Part of that will be dependent on Tua's health. It's not something that I can necessarily control, so, you know, I'm going to bet on Tyreek Hill either way. Hopefully we get the lucky outcome of Tua not being in a coma. 47 and 50. I do draft him a decent... Well, I like drafting him. I don't necessarily do it too much. DK Metcalf is a decent consideration. Does play Miami. We further stack into Miami. Do I love it? No, not necessarily, but it would further justify maybe taking Waddle, getting a Tua double. It's not the worst idea I've ever had. In terms of other options, JMO as well does play the Steelers. Kind of really honing in on Metcalf there. Can also just work into a value. We'll be able to stack into Miami, especially with them playing Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Tampa Bay. You can get a fair bit of later stuff. Cincinnati being the toughest one, but we already have Higgins. Cincinnati, they're much more difficult to work into. You do have Baltimore, Miami, Arizona. Arizona closes out pretty quick unless you get into Trey Benson later or take James Conner at his current ADP. Can be difficult. I don't hate taking Conner, but he's not going to be someone that I'm going to have super high ownership of. I do like him a fair bit. I don't think Benson's too much of a threat, but we have been seeing a lot more reports about Benson getting more work from top down. Trying to think through matchups here. Yeah, it's kind of hard for me to justify the rest of this when I do know we have matchups lined up here that we could take advantage of. If DJ Moore is there, I will just take DJ Moore. I like DJ Moore a fair bit this year. Said it before, but I think more likely than not, DJ Moore will be the beneficiary of Ben Johnson's offense, not Luther Burden. I certainly could be wrong. Could take a quarterback value on Hurts. I don't think we're going to do that. Nothing to play into Pickens. I'll play it safe here and take a receiver that's going to get a lot of targets from Aaron Rodgers this year. He's basically their only, proven receiving weapon this year, unless you consider Jonnu Smith or Pat Freiermuth to be exceptionally proven. But one of them is going to have to play out wide a fair bit, or they're going to have to run a shitload of tight end heavy sets. I will take a slight value on Pickens if I need to, but otherwise, I think we just take the Tua double. We played into 2 matchups for Miami with Pitt, Cincy. We can work into Tampa Bay pretty nicely into the wide receiver room later, and then we'll aim for a running back at the next pick. Pickens is very tempting. I do like George Pickens. I think the Dallas offense is going to be very good this year. So I'm going to take the Miami double, prey on some Tua health this year, and we almost assuredly will be taking Tua later. Let's scope out the running backs at 71 and 74 for now, though. Joe Mixon will certainly be there. He'll fall 8 spots past and be there at 70. I don't think we can justify taking him on this current team. I mean, Caleb Johnson is there. I do find myself doing that a lot. We could go Montgomery. I wouldn't hate that at all. Pacheco is a little concerning because of the Kareem Hunt threat at the goal line. I'm not going to overrate it because I do think Andy Reid still is a Pacheco fan. If we get lucky enough to maybe get 2 of these at the next 2 picks, I'll be ecstatic. It is tough having Swift and Caleb Johnson both on Bijan's bye week, but we'll be able to survive, hopefully find a little bit of value into that later. If we do have to take Caleb Johnson, we almost assuredly will try and angle into Dylan Sampson later. Not only should have, some early season value with the Judkins stuff going on. I admittedly maybe caught with my pants down here, considering how much I was praising Judkins, assuming that the situation would develop more positively over the past 3 weeks. We've basically been getting nothing. Reports from Haslam going, I'm positive, to his one-word response of, have you talked to Judkins? No. Not exactly what you want to see. I do still fully believe in BBM. Getting Judkins after ADP at this stage when there is so much uncertainty can win you the $1 million, but it's getting more and more likely that we're not going to see much out of Judkins. It's harder to know. The thing that I can stamp my approval on is I'm happy that I got, shares of him. Regardless of where the ADP ends up landing, I still believe the philosophy behind why you take Judkins because of the massive outperformance of ADP if news did turn positive. But for now, unless you're, got 0 Judkins, you can probably cool off a little bit, at least over the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll get some news and you can attack it after that. We will angle Monty first, just to not play into 2 buys here on week 5. Between Monty and Swift, I probably do like Swift a little bit more, but not enough to justify doubling up on week 5 for running backs here. Take Monty there. Happy with that. We could punt running back further down if we really want to get risky with it. Take Laporta, be set up to take, maybe a Detroit. But, without JMO, I don't really want to play Goff into, like, Montgomery, Laporta. I don't think that's too hot. How does Minnesota play into our other matchups? Dallas, New England. New York, not New England. I think we can just take Pacheco. If this were BBM, I'd be willing to go Aaron Jones here because of the hyper emphasis on week 17. Otherwise, Minnesota doesn't play into too much with us. Maybe if we, I'll change my tune there. It's fairly easy to get Javonte Williams in these drafts. So knowing that, I'll at least have 2 matchups for the Minnesota running back room. And I think Aaron Jones is getting a little undervalued. Don't get me wrong, he has injury concerns. Jordan Mason is a threat, but the reality is that they'll probably both get some work. Aaron Jones being, a high-end RB2 with RB1 upside in any given week because of the passing work is more than enough for us right now with the current roster set up with Bijan and Montgomery. Even in half-point PPR, getting that receiving work out of the backfield, a target, a reception is worth a lot more than just a handoff in fantasy football, whether even in standard. There's data to prove it. So while I still like Jordan Mason a fair bit, especially considering the handcuff injury upside with someone like Aaron Jones should, by all accounts, still be the first running back off the board. So I'm more than happy to take him there. If we see Godwin fall, I could be convinced. Damn, Agbuka at 73? What the what? Let me queue up Tua so I don't forget about him. I will have to build out some semblance of a queue here so that I don't get caught auto-drafting Tua early. Knowing we're playing into Miami, we'll just queue up those teams as our tentative backups. Change this song. Alright. In terms of who our second quarterback could be, I mean, we could go Rodgers. We'll see if we get any angling. I mean, if I go Godwin and then get a value out of Baker, that could justify it, work pretty well. Excuse the silence as I queue all this junk up. Who's the last one I need out of Miami? Oh, Cincinnati, but we're not going to really get much out of that besides maybe a late Taj Brook pick, a late Gesicki. Baker there, no Godwin to justify it. I don't think we do that. I think we can take Jaylen Warren. It's not the worst thing. Works in receiving wise. I've talked at length about how much I love Caleb Johnson, but that could just be fool's gold on my end. I think Jaylen Warren does offer a fair bit of early season value for us. Not necessarily something we need. It's not like we took heavy rookie running backs and need some performance in the running back room very early. But there is a chance that Jaylen Warren, you know, cashes in on a fair bit of target share later in the year and finds some value for us. So I'm not going to completely write him off, even though I do think Caleb Johnson is the back in this backfield. It's just a question of when. There's nothing to say that, you know, Caleb Johnson doesn't get hurt at some point in those games and Jaylen Warren is suddenly thrust into a much larger role. Baker with no receiving to justify it is hard. I think instead of that, we'll just take Fields. Fields gives us a solid floor due to his rushing. An easy quarterback to take naked. I prefer Baker Mayfield, but in this kind of contest, I'm not really gonna... Like, we don't have... I mean, maybe we could have done it. If we had gotten, like, any Tampa Bay wide receiver, I would have felt fine about it, considering we play into Atlanta and Miami. That's 2 games for Baker. But otherwise, I'm going to take the quarterback that I can take naked, feel happy about. Will give us a solid floor, and hopefully Tua can hit more on that ceiling. Not to say that Fields doesn't have ceiling, but a lot of that ceiling is going to come more from rushing or a heavy outperformance of what people expect from him throwing-wise. What pick will we have to take Tua at? Likely going to have to do it at 12. I don't think I'm going to push it at 11. We should be fine at 12. Not too many concerns there. Most of our board until much later in the draft when we work into some more game stacking is fairly open. So at this point, I don't think we need to focus too keen on, you know, unless we want to stack further into Miami, stack further into, you know, other teams. I think we can chill for now in terms of game and team stacking and just take ADP value. We'll get the rest of our game stacking much later in the draft. So for now, I'm just going to keep going best player available, players that I like, players that I see fitting well into our current roster construction. In terms of tight ends, I don't want to... I mean, Gesicki, Otten, and a third could work decently well. I never hate that. Could maybe take Likely for a fair bit of upside. I don't think I'm going to take Njoku on this team. Maybe if we had ended up taking Swift, that makes more sense. Chicago doesn't play too well into anything for us. Yeah. We'll probably just take some sort of mid-late, likely not any of these people much, like in this more 150s range. Any values here, and then angle into Gesicki, Otten. Maybe if we see some value on Jonnu after not getting it in the middle rounds, we can do something like that. But I'm just going to take late round tight end value, end up with 3 of them with this current roster as it seems to line up. Baltimore does play Cincinnati, but we don't have much outside of that. We did bring up... Let me clock in real quick. I mean, ETN is a value. We do have him playing Fields. Could work into a later Denver wide receiver. Yeah, I'm not going to pass up the value on ETN here. But given this ADP investment into running back, unless we see another crazy value, like I think we even probably have to pass on Sharbs here. So even though I said I wasn't going to go Njoku, I might have to here. Kirk doesn't work in anything. We could take Mims. I'd honestly prefer Njoku to Mims with this current team, and we'll work into wide receiver later. Yeah, I think we're set at running back. We're just going to take Njoku here. I do think that further justifies us into taking Rodgers later. 3 quarterbacks, though, with Fields and Tua can be tough. If we sit at 5, yeah, 3 and 3 is going to be, we'd have to go 3 quarterback, 5 running back, 11, and then 7 wide receiver. We'd have the option to go 6-6. But I think with this, we're going to go 7 wide receiver, sit at 5 running back, and 3 and 3. Could work, but I'm not going to push too heavy on Rodgers. Either way, Njoku, player I like, gives us some stability to then, you know, really trust that we can get some value out of later tight ends instead of pushing too hard on them. Anything for Cleveland we could work into? Not necessarily. Maybe a couple later Buffalo wide receivers. Not too much Chicago left on the board unless we take Loveland after a massive ADP drop. Hollywood Brown, okay value. More than anything right now, though, we do just need some receivers. Can maybe take Josh Palmer. We do know Tua will be the first of our next 2 picks. The question is, who is the second? Still love McMillan. I think McMillan offers a ton of early season value. Could maybe pop off at the end if we see any injury sweeping Tampa Bay, which I do not hope for in the slightest, but it is a reality of fantasy football and football in general. I mean, yeah. If Colston Loveland is going to be there at this next pick, I'm just going to take him. Like, he doesn't play anything. He doesn't have to be a value for this team, especially at the ADP value we would be getting. Does go off the board. Not much you can do about that, though. Hollywood Brown or Josh Palmer is an interesting question. I'd be surprised if Kirk is there. I think I am sort of stuck. What is the... Has Hurts. If there's anything I've learned, it's that I do not trust most of the people in these lobbies. I think I'm kind of forced to go Tua first. I think in terms of base value, there's not too much of a difference between Hollywood Brown and Josh Palmer. Hollywood Brown certainly has more early season for us with Reishi out. But I'm not going to get too fancy here. Let's take the quarterback for our big double, which is Hill and Waddle. And then we're just going to be firing at wide receiver for a bit here. Interesting to see Josh Palmer go at 42. Dobbs would honestly be fine. Again, doesn't play into anything, but I think he can be a value. I would prefer Hollywood. Does scope out to be a better wide receiver room and should get us some more points early. Sampson, certainly a pick if we weren't already so deep in our running back room. I think I do prefer both Brown and Dobbs to QJ without any game stacking to justify QJ. Alright. Yeah, especially with bye week 12 for Miami, we'll just go Dobbs here. Tillman could be a value, potentially, given how much they'll throw the ball, but Green Bay scopes out to be a better offense in general. Maybe not by passing volume, but in terms of efficiency, we'll see better out of Green Bay. If we had some more to work into Cleveland, it could make sense, but no Chicago, no Buffalo. I'm not going to overstack on Cleveland here. Especially when I'm dealing with later season Cleveland. I worry about Flacco getting benched and having to deal with some poor quarterback play. Assuming we will go McMillan at 67 if he's there. 67 and 70. Thielen would be okay, I guess. Pop Douglas would be fine. Plays into Jets. I think I am fine kicking Rodgers to 191. 5 picks past ADP. Especially with where we're at pit-wise. I don't think it's a necessity to reach on him. It also kind of pushes me away from going Jonnu. I don't think that's the play. I have seen Likely fall from time to time. I'd be happy to take him. Brenton Strange, I don't really think fits too well. We do have one matchup with the Jets. I mean, if you're going to give me value, I'll usually take it. I said it earlier, we're just hunting, value in the tight end room, apart from either Gesicki or Otten. Otten is better because he does play into 2 matchups versus Gesicki's 1. Those matchups being Atlanta and Miami. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna give me, especially Likely, later, when I intend to go 3 tight ends, I'm gonna do it. I mean, I've said it before, I don't like buying into injuries. I think the public's a little too positive, but right now we're getting a case of the public showing a lack of positivity. Likely does go off the board, as does Brenton Strange. Leggett? I don't really see that. So maybe I am pushed into Jonnu here. I mean, we do play into it well, all of the pit. It's Miami, Detroit, Cleveland. We have something for all of that. McMillan, definitely the first pick. Screw you, guy. Screw you, fella. We're just going to auto-draft Smith. I don't really care much about any of these wide receivers immediately on the board. I don't think we need, Jalen Wright. I also don't... I would rather the pick end up at, more wide receiver than a 6th running back. Thielen's okay. I seriously don't think that Beck's going to have the target share that people think he'll have unless Las Vegas throws the ball a ton. No matchup play into that. We do have Minnesota, I guess, for Wan'Dale Robinson. Maybe we see a little bit of positivity there. Denver, same thing, and I don't really care too much for Pat Bryant. Yeah, I mean, I'll just take Wan'Dale. I don't love the pick, but if somehow this Giants offense is better than it expects to be, you know what? I mean, 140 targets last year. Problem is he's just so close to the line of scrimmage. You're not seeing a lot of yardage, not seeing a lot of efficiency out of the Giants offense to get any TD work. But maybe if that improves, Wan'Dale could be a serviceable 3 for us. Rodgers the next pick if he's there. And then we probably close it out with one more tight end and one more wide receiver. If we take Rodgers, it probably does have to be Calvin Austin. But yeah, we're aiming for Rodgers, Otten at the next 2. We don't need Brooks. Don't need Tucker. I do think Tucker can be a fairly valuable pick. If you have 0 Tampa Bay and you are in this, Miami double, which granted you are looking at a man with 0 Tampa Bay in this Miami double. The fact of the matter is I'm already I feel like given the ADP I've invested into this running back room, an 8th wide receiver is more valuable to me than a 6th running back at this point, especially one that does scope out to be higher ceiling, much lower floor like Sean Tucker, because he requires an injury or 2 to really hit his ceiling, even though he has shown that he can hit it when given the opportunity. Either way, Rodgers Otten is our plan. I'm more than happy to do it. It should give us 3 quarterbacks. It does generally increase your advance rate pretty well, and Rodgers just plays into so many matchups that it makes sense ceiling-wise for us to do that in the sprint, knowing he plays Miami, Detroit, Cleveland. Interesting to see Eckler falling. I mean, they're 180, 18 spots past his current ADP. Jerome Ford now past 8. Thielen seeing a heavy drop. What has the board been doing? Miles Sanders. What the what? Interesting. Dante Thornton was an interesting pick, to say the least. All right. Otten and Rodgers, make it back to me, baby. In the meantime, since we have these scoped out, we can do a review of this draft. Start off with Bijan at 2. I don't think you necessarily have to play too hard into your first overall pick in this sprint. I do think I recently looked back at, granted this is BBM, not sprint, but I do think it generally applies somewhat loosely. In terms of game stacking, team stacking, like it's sort of split 50-50 in BBM, like how heavily game stacked the winning team was, how heavily game stacked they were. You know, it's pretty split down the middle. So I think you kind of just have to, in your own drafts, take a similar stance. Not every roster has to be immaculately game and team stacked, but sometimes there definitely is the clear value in doing it. Regardless, while Bijan does play Tampa Bay, Arizona, LA, we're only really playing into one of those. We're not even really playing into Tampa Bay. So Bijan, even without it, can provide value for us in some high quality matchups. Took Tyreek Hill. I just think he's a value at that 23, 24, 22 spot. Back end to late 2. I love Tyreek Hill. Rodgers does go. We'll live. It's fine. We'll just be able to actually maybe take someone like Sean Tucker late and hope that Tua and Fields can do what they need to do for us. We're now up in the air a little bit at this pick. Could have gone Alec Pierce. I'm fine with Alec Pierce or Jalen Knoll. I don't think this guy takes 2 of them. I mean, we could take Arizona to play into Bijan as well with Michael Wilson. I don't think Taj Brooks is a play here. Yeah, we'll just go Knoll or Wilson. Any reason to justify one of them over the other? Houston doesn't really do anything for us, but I do think Knoll has a higher ceiling, and at this point, ceiling is what I need at this wide receiver room. So I'm happy to go Knoll, hoping that he carves out a Tank Dell role in this offense. Michael Wilson, to me, even with like an injury to Marvin Harrison or Trey McBride, Wilson's ceiling feels very capped. Like he seems like a dependable starter that even in the event of injury, like you'll see Greg Dortch get some increased looks rather than Wilson seeing like a heavy concentration of targets to me. That's kind of where he pans out to be. I don't think, yeah, we're just going to sit with Tua and Fields, especially given we have the Tua double. Like, we need Tua to perform. 3 quarterbacks could have been greedy, but I think over 3 games into playoffs, like, Tua playing well through the regular season can be what gets us there, and then we find a culmination of value over those 3 weeks from 3 quarterbacks to hit top-end value. But we can survive even without Raji. While we wait for this final pick, I do think I'm gonna get active and go Sean Tucker. Considering the lack of Tampa Bay we have and the 2 matchups they play into, that being Bijan out of Atlanta and our Miami double in 17, there is some value out of Sean Tucker somehow being a late season darling, and it's a pick few people are making given his 215 ADP. Going back to the review, Tyreek into T. Higgins. They play each other week 16, both in good offenses, both players I like. More than happy to do that. DK Metcalf, we then know that, we do want to angle into Detroit after doing that. Miami plays the Steelers week 15. Cleveland's fairly easy to get into later. Metcalf is also a receiver in this range that probably has the safest target share outside of like McLaurin if he plays. He's going to get heavily targeted by Aaron Rodgers, and I do think Rodgers will throw the ball a little bit more than people expect, even in an Arthur Smith offense. We then take Jalen Waddle, double up into Miami, knowing we're going to go for Tua later, and Miami plays fairly well into everything we've taken so far, that being Pitt, Cincy, and we hoped to get a little bit more Tampa Bay than we ended up getting, but that's neither here nor there. Montgomery, as we just said, plays into Pitt. 16, Pitt, Detroit. I also like Monty. I do think he'll have a role this year. I think people kind of are reading a little bit too much into it. Yes, Swift is going to be amazing, but I think Monty's still going to be a little bit of a TD vulture time and time again. Close it out with Sean Tucker here. Aaron Jones, 1, plays into David Montgomery. 2, is a serviceable running back, especially early in the season. Even if you do think that Jordan Mason is going to take over the backfield, Jones has a lot of early season value. I don't think Mason's going to completely overtake the backfield. That would require an injury in my eyes. Let's take Sean Tucker here, get a little bit more Tampa Bay for those 2 matchups. And Aaron Jones is going to be the receiving guy out of this backfield. Whether they split it, he fully controls it, Mason takes over, Jones will still be getting passing down work. Receiving work can be what really makes these mid-round running backs thrive and beat ADP. Jaylen Warren, kind of in a similar boat where you expect him to get passing work. He is one that I am a little bit undervalued on. Well, not undervalued. Under-repped on. I haven't drafted Jaylen Warren a bunch because I love Caleb Johnson so much. But we've talked how the Pitt matchups line up well for us, and we needed some more running back help here. Had an option to go Baker. If we had seen, which I book at 73, still blows my mind. If we had seen Godwin fall to 95 here, I would have immediately gone Godwin Baker, been very happy, set up perfectly well for 2 of those teams, getting hopefully a massive Miami Tampa Bay game to really close out the value for us in this sprint. Doesn't happen, it's fine. Fields you can easily take naked. The rushing value should hopefully sustain some fair week-to-week floor in our quarterback room. Helped further by the fact that we are aiming for a high ceiling out of Tua. Then you got Travis Etienne, just a value running back, helped us kind of build up the running back room further, which is admittedly a little sparse right now. When you take Etienne, you're hoping that Liam Cohen's, gonna love him because what he can do in the backfield, mainly as a receiver. This is a murky backfield right now. Nobody really knows who's gonna come out on top. I'm not gonna pretend like I'm certain it's Etienne, but Etienne, kind of same thing we just talked about, these 2 running backs. He's great in the receiving game. So if he does become the 1A, expect to see a fair amount of value out of that, even if he doesn't fully take over the backfield. David Njoku, Cleveland's going to throw the ball a ton. We have him playing Pitt. Kind of just a value here. Not ADP-wise, it's just the other players around him I didn't love. We needed wide receivers. We did not really need many more running backs at this point. We're already 4 RBs in, expecting to maybe take, we're 5 in. Apologies, forgot about Bijan. We're 5 running backs in. Usually going up to 7 running backs in your entire draft is not optimum. So knowing I'm at 5, I'm not really going to push harder for another one of these running backs. So happy to take Njoku. Should get a lot of targets, especially whenever Flacco is at the helm. Get Tua, finish up that double. Get some value out of Dobbs. I think Dobbs is very serviceable. If you see any injury to the Packers wide receiver room, he obviously gets that immediate bump. Any wide receiver in the Green Bay offense has fairly high week-to-week ceiling with a capped season-long ceiling to me. Jonnu Smith, we're playing into Pitt well. We missed out on Rodgers later, but we need another tight end, and Jonnu could maybe provide some value in those 3-week stretch where we know we have someone playing against him every single week across those 3. Wan'Dale Robinson, we're stuck in kind of like no man's land at wide receiver right now, especially in this 170 range. I honestly like a lot of these 200 receivers more than the 170 ones right now. Like, I would rather draft fucking, I don't know. I'm not going to say Jalen Knowles since I'm the one who drafted him. I'd rather have Adam Thielen. I'd rather have Adonai Mitchell. I'd rather have, honestly, Slayton ain't bad if you play into him well, than Pat Bryant, Dante Thompson. I do like Alec Pierce a fair bit as well. But either way, we're kind of in no man's land. Wan'Dale, you at least know, is going to get a lot of targets to justify his worth on your team, while those are going to be admittedly closer to line of scrimmage targets. If you see an increased efficiency in New York, he can provide some more value. Cade Otton plays into Atlanta and Miami for us. Clears out our 3rd tight end. 3 tight ends. 3 versus 2 tight ends. There's not really much difference between the optimal. I just kind of think, since we are so limited on Tampa Bay while playing 2 of those matchups, it makes sense to go a 3rd here with Otton, who I also do like a fair bit. Jalen Knoll, I think, out of the wide receivers you see getting drafted here, has the highest ceiling. That does come with a lower floor. I would say Calvin Austin has a higher floor than him. But Knoll, if he somehow takes a Tank Dell role in back to rookie season kind of passing performance from CJ Stroud, I mean, explosivity is what you're looking at right there. And then Sean Tucker, since we don't have much Tampa Bay for those two matchups, and he's shown that when he gets opportunity, he can make the most of it. I'll take Tucker there, especially because not many people are taking Tucker at all. But that's it for today's draft. Appreciate everyone who tuned in for as brief or as long as they did. Jimbo, especially you, even after my my harsh words towards Bucky Irving. But I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Peace out. Have a good one. Draft well. Peace.